And when you go down to first entering a corner, riders don't know what gear they're in a lot of the time. They just know if they need to go down or up. But you could accidentally go into neutral, same problem. So these bikes have 1 to 6 all in a line, no neutral between, but you cannot go down below first into neutral without pulling a special lever that opens a gate and allows the gearbox to select neutral. So as soon as you leave the garage, you see them pull a lever, then they put it in out of that, neutral into gear, and they don't go. It cannot go into neutral until they come back in. They pull that lever and go back in when they stop at the box. So it has no neutral when it's out on track. Fantastic. It won't be many more years then production bikes will be getting that as well.
Well, thank you very much for that, Simon. mtorGP 101, and yeah, as you mentioned, production bikes as well. So we'll switch back to a question for you both, Steve and Bertie. Where do you guys see KTM in the 2020 season? This is from Samuel Gomez. It looks like they're investing a lot and bringing a ton of new parts to this Valencia test.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good for Polestarga at the moment, isn't it, in second place? I think that they have to make a step forward, and I think they will make a step forward. I think Dani Pedrosa has been a huge help to them, and I think that I don't think we should try and get too carried away. I don't think they're going to transform.
Where do you guys see KTM in the 2020 season? This is from Samuel Gomez. It looks like they're investing a lot and bringing a ton of new parts to this Valencia test.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good for Polestarga at the moment, isn't it, in second place? I think that they have to make a step forward, and I think they will make a step forward. I think Dani Pedrosa has been a huge help to them, and I think that I don't think we should try and get too carried away. I don't think they're going to transform into a team that are, fighting for podiums week in, week out. If you look at Paul Espargaro's results this year, I suppose what you've got to look at is trying to make a forward step from there. And before his injury in Aragon, he was actually regularly inside the top 10, 6th, 9th, 7th, 9th, 7th. I'd say if they can make it.
They've got to be in dry conditions, definitely finding themselves knocking on the door in that top 6 on a much more regular basis, because right now they're not there enough.
All right then. Well, and it helps when you've got a MotoGP legend as one of your test riders as well, doesn't it? With Dani Pedrosa on track there. Good to see him actually back out with the regular riders on track once again. So, got another question coming from Reddit. Now, this one's caught my eye because I'm not sure about this. Given that your experience sort of over the years in the paddock, Bertie, you might know the answer. But from Ivan Helgen. Wants to know, do teams still practice sending rookies out without traction control on their first day? Was that a thing of the past, or was it even never a thing, just a rumour that us followers of the sport started? Sounds a very bizarre sort of thing.
I've never heard of rookies being sent out with no electronics or no traction control.
Me neither. So.
I mean, talk about a recipe for disaster. I mean, I think what they do is, they'll send them out either like what we heard yesterday, a fairly standard base.
About how was the new engine and the chassis?
Well, actually it's positive because lap times were very similar to what we had, so only have few kilometers on the track. Still we have to improve for sure, but seems very positive.
When you say improve, I imagine for Jerez test, I'm curious what you would like to improve for there.
We have to try still many things. For sure we need a little bit more power. Arrive a little bit more, but it's not enough. Our competitive.
Viñales then, so it sounds like it's been a pretty positive start to 2020 for the factory Yamaha man. Second quickest Maverick was yesterday, 66 laps he tried on the new engine and chassis combination, and he's in 6th position at the moment with a 1:31.036 from Maverick to Matt. Rivalry was a highlight, in particular Buriram, not just because of the fact that Mark just risked everything to win that race and win the championship from the top step of the podium, which is the way you want to do it. For me it was a clear sign that Fabio Quartararo on that occasion, we saw him in Misano fight Mark to the checker flag, but was that a one-off? No, it wasn't. Fabio proved it wasn't a one-off, and it was a brilliant performance. He tried to lunge up the inside of Mark at the final corner, perfect way for Mark to win the championship, so that for me is right up there. Of course, there were so many great races, This man's win at Silverstone, the 4th closest finish in MotoGP history. I could have picked that one, but you know what, for me, it wasn't even MotoGP. My highlight of the season, it was Tatsuki Suzuki's win at Misano in Moto3, just because of everything that the Simoncelli family have been through. To do it in Misano at a circuit named after Marco, I think nobody didn't have a lump in their throat that weekend. So yeah, that actually for me, in terms of emotion, in terms of what it meant to the team, what it meant to Tatsuki, and just the whole feel-good factor it created for the championship, I think actually I would put that as top of my pile, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a really good shout, actually. That's thrown me a bit of a curveball. You know, I'll go for something different. I'll stick to my 3 best moments for me of 2019 in MotoGP. For me, Danilo's win at Mugello, just because we all love Danilo and it's his dream. You know, everything that he's worked towards to get to that level. The rags to riches story, if it ever gets released, is extraordinary. And for him to win a MotoGP race, not just winning it in Italy, but against the very best, as we see here, Brad Binder just going for a little bit of an excursion on circuit. For him to do it against his teammate Dovi and against Marc Marquez, absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
Second for me was Dovi's win in Austria. I thought that race was unbelievable, and Dovi to pull a move like he did, so un-Dovi-like in that last corner. I loved that. One of my favourite races, without a shadow of a doubt. And the other one, you've got to kind of give it to the boss, haven't you, of the World Championship. I thought after the crash in Thailand at the start of the weekend, for Marc to come back and win that race against Fabio Quartararo and eventually win the World Championship was just plain ridiculous. Because I was convinced after that crash, which, let's be honest, was the biggest crash he's had in years. I thought he'd be in hospital. I thought that was it for the weekend. So for me, yeah, but Petrucci Mugello is top.
Yeah, that's I got to say that's one of my highlights as well.
What about Simon? You got any, mate?
Oh, you just caught me back in pit lane. Oh, I haven't had a moment to think about this, but really the few of the memorable ones were the ones that gave me lots of emotion, you know. I'd have to agree about the Danilo one. I walked back through the paddock at Mugello, and interviewing him, I got a lump in my throat, a little bit teary eyes, because it was so good to see him win that race, you know, and at home, and everything Danilo's been through, unreal. It was, but also because how he is, everyone that interviews him, everyone that spends time with him is fond of Danilo, you know, his sense of humour. He's so, what's the word? He's just a really good guy. And then I thought it was just me. I went back to the TV compound, and all of the girls that interview him and a couple of the guys that work in the media side, you know, interviewing, are all blubbing at the TV for the same. So that was probably the top one. Marc turning up, like you just said, Steve, after the crash, and I felt the whole paddock go, oh, this is our chance. You know, Marc's going to be a bit battered after that big high side. You could feel the riders thinking, this is our shot, and he turns up and goes fastest in the next session. It was, to me, stunning. Everyone, team managers, riders, mouth open, looking at the screen, couldn't believe what he did. The other one is just purely, for me, about rider, ex-rider emotion. There'll be more that I haven't remembered, but it would be Carl turning up to Phillip Island and going so well, because I know how hard that is to push back a traumatic experience, because you don't have control over those mental things in the back of your head, you know. So for sure, Carl turned up at Phillip Island with this horrible memory, you know, of this really nasty break in his leg, fast crash, time stuck in hospital, can't go home. They're all the things that rattled me when I had a bad accident. And to turn up to the same place and get on the podium, and that's a proper warrior. That was brilliant.
Yeah, really lovely memories there. I would like to say, but for me personally as well, add about what you mentioned briefly, Bertie, with Rins and Marquez at Silverstone. That was just such a classy race, and it was so unexpected, that final corner move. And also, like, you watch the race back in the highlights, and you see Rins have a couple of big moments, lose a couple of tenths on Mark, and he still pulled it back. And it was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and I think what made it even more fitting and even more memorable, of course, it was 40 years since the legendary Silverstone battle between Kenny Roberts and Barry Sheene back in 1979. So what a way to mark that special anniversary, because that was an awesome race. I mean, was it 4,000th of a second over the line, and it showed that Alex Rins on his day can really mix it and take it and scrap it out with the very best.
It got a high-pitched ending, which is always a good sign, and it got the Matt Burt seal of approval as well.
Yeah,
woohoo! Across the line.
That,
you always know it's been a good race.
That is your barometer of a top race, isn't it, when you get the old woohoo?
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely quality stuff that was. Got a question, interesting question here actually, which I really wanted to touch upon, from Anthony Passmore. This is from Twitter, by the way. Will Marc Marquez be distracted next season by trying to help his brother, or even just having the Marquez brothers alongside each other? Now, I'm going to give a little bit of a quick plug to the MotoGP podcast for next week, because actually touched upon this sort of subject with Aleix Espargaro. Me and Fran did an interview with him this week, and we wanted to ask him two subjects. About family, how his perspective on racing has changed since becoming a father, and also what it's like racing against his brother at the top flight of the sport. And he said, interestingly enough, Pole becoming a MotoGP rider actually helped his own races, not because of motivation he wanted to beat his brother, but because he got so nervous watching Pole race. He was always too rattled, actually quite tired and almost exhausted, especially when Pole was battling for the Moto2 title, before he even got out and raced there. So actually it calmed his nerves a little bit. I wonder if whether it would be the same for Mark this year, going into next year.
I will just say that is quite possible, but if you noticed, a lot of times this year when Alex was going through that particularly good run, it almost looked like Alex winning in Moto2 pumped Mark up for the MotoGP race. Yeah. I mean, I genuinely believe that he got something out of that. I'm not saying it's going to have an adverse effect. I think Mark, I think he's a different breed. He's a different animal. I think he'll help Alex, who we're looking at on screen. I think he will try and push him along, but that visor goes down. Mark's an animal. He is. No way is it going to affect him.
No, I think Mark's kind of so mentally bulletproof that he can block out those potential distractions. I mean, what will happen perhaps, if Alex has a bad session, or a big crash in particular, that's going to perhaps weigh on the mind of Mark. But I think that the guy is just, this is what sets him apart. He's so mentally strong. Thailand, as Stephen Simon just mentioned, was proof of that crash he had in Buriram in practice. To come back from that and then still produce the race he did just shows the mental fortitude
with him, and actually battling for race. That's another matter altogether, but I don't think that's going to be happening for a year or two.
No, but it's a good question, good topic to discuss as well. Anyways, and I love sort of brother dummies like that. Go ahead, Si.
Yeah, about that, I don't think any real racers would treat their brother any different than any other rider on track if they're battling for that position. I wouldn't, and I don't think Mark would have any hesitation to treat his brother exactly the same. I would run my brother to the grass to beat him to the line.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Pecco Bagnaia actually said that he does treat Valentino Rossi differently. Now, maybe that's a mistake, but because it's his boss, he actually admitted after the Phillip Island race, because they were racing in close quarters, that he genuinely had to check himself and go, oh, hang on, this is Valentino, and was more cautious with him in close quarters in the race. So it is interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that will ever happen with Mark, will it?
No.
I mean, if Mark and Alex one day are racing together, Mark is ruthless, absolutely ruthless and calculating. That's what the characteristics you have to be to make it to the top and be a great champion. Valentino Rossi is the same. So Mark, I just think he'll be able to quite easily block it out. He will not see the other side of that garage as family or brother. He'll just see it as We've got a problem here for Valentino Rossi.
Some
lights
smoke
all
coming up
over that
the unit.
dashboard and a bit of smoke, yeah, so is that one of those new 2020 prototype Yamaha M1 engines that's had enough?
Looking around for a bit of help, but be along there soon enough. At least it's not looking a bit like the Aprilia at all.
Guys, I just wanted to add that I think Mark will help Alex any way he can to get him competitive and get him to keep the job. I'm just saying that it'll all change if Alex starts giving him, you know, a hard time, and then it's gloves off.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. Yeah, well, I think we all agree with that one, don't we? Just a quick one. Valentino here getting some assistance with his motorcycle. The top four at the moment, separated by 700ths of a second. Marquez quickest from Pol Espargaro. Alex Rins then third. And now Fabio Quartararo has just gone up into fourth place. Let's see what happened here then on the approach to turn 10. Oh, he almost slipped off the bike there. And so he's sat up and rolled out of that. Something has gone wrong there with the 2020 Yamaha.
Something else I just wanted to add about the brothers, something else that came out in a Leish's interview, which I just remembered. You know, him and Pol had that big battle in Malaysia. Well, Pol and him, obviously, they saw each other a lot between that and this race here. Pol goes and spends a lot of time with Leish's kids, etc. And he said they've not even mentioned a word about their battle in Malaysia. Nothing. Nothing at all. Barely even more than the congratulations. So there's just interesting brother dynamics, really.
So problems for the doctor, Valentino Rossi, off the circuit at turn 10. No problems right now for another Yamaha rider, Fabio Quartararo. He's on a really good lap here. And Fabio Quartararo, right on cue, does go top of the timesheets. A 1:36.62. He was quickest on day one here in Valencia yesterday. And that lap he's just put in, his 29th lap of the day on day two, is just 0.02 of a second faster than Marc Marquez.
By the way, we're getting an awful lot of tweets coming through telling us here in the commentary box, Duran Zarco signed for Reale Avinti, guys. When that's confirmed, if that's confirmed, we will let you know. And unless it's tweeted by Ducati, or unless there's official confirmation from MotoGP or an official account, it's not done until it's done. Believe us, despite the fact that there are some media outlets by the looks of things on Twitter saying it's a fact. Maybe, you know, internally it is, but it has not been officially confirmed yet. We will let you know if that changes or as and when it does. Matt, back to you, mate.
Well, actually, interesting you say that. So we do have a question at all.
Guys, I just wanted to add that I think Mark will help Alex any way he can to get him competitive and get him to keep the job. I'm just saying that it'll all change if Alex starts giving him, you know, a hard time, and then it's gloves off.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. Yeah, well, I think we all agree with that one, don't we?
See, they saw each other a lot between that and this race here. Pol goes and spends a lot of time with Leish's kids, etc. And he said they've not even mentioned a word about their battle in Malaysia. Nothing. Nothing at all. Barely even more than the congratulations. So there's just interesting brother dynamics, really.
So problems for the doctor, Valentino Rossi, off the circuit at turn 10. No problems right now for another Yamaha rider, Fabio Quartararo. He's on a really good lap here. And Fabio Quartararo, right on cue, does go top of the timesheets. A 1:36.62. He was quickest on day one here in Valencia yesterday. And that lap he's just put in, his 29th lap of the day on day two, is just 0.02 of a second faster than Marc Marquez.
By the way, we're getting an awful lot of tweets coming through telling us here in the commentary box, Duran Zarco signed for Reale Avinti, guys. When that's confirmed, if that's confirmed, we will let you know. And unless it's tweeted by Ducati or unless there's official confirmation from MotoGP or an official account, it's not done until it's done. Believe us, despite the fact that there are some media outlets by the looks of things on Twitter saying it's a fact. Maybe, you know, internally it is, but it has not been officially confirmed yet. We will let you know if that changes or as and when it does. Matt, back to you, mate.
Well, actually, interesting you say that. So we do have a question, not about specifically Zarco, Vinci and whatever, but Samuel's written in again and asking, what do you guys think about the procedure of contract negotiations? Because they're just getting sooner and sooner every single year. What do you reckon about those, and what's your thoughts on a potential transfer window, a bit like we see in football?
I have reservations about it personally, in terms of the fact that I still think teams will talk anyway and probably behind the scenes get it done. But if there was some sort of ruling on that where it could change, I would not be against the idea of transfer windows, because I sometimes think that teams miss a trick as a result of it. You know, I'm going to use the likes of Andrea Iannone as an example at Suzuki. The first year, okay, he didn't perform quite so well, but in the second year, he was going brilliantly. Poor old Scott Redding, when he came to Aprilia, his first year with Aprilia, what did he have, 3-4 races? And he was told he wasn't needed. I mean, that's no good. You've got to... in terms of allowing riders to prove what they've got, I don't like it. I think it's not cool for the sport, and I think it can upset the rhythm. That said, this is a dog-eat-dog business. It is ruthless, and you know, it is a business based on results. You know, and if you're not getting results, then ultimately you're probably going to pay the price. But I personally wouldn't be against the idea of a transfer window if it was handled and dealt with in the correct manner.
Yeah, can't really add anything else to that one. I remember when I first came to the paddock in 1996, you know, riders weren't signing contracts until August time. And now the riders that are getting negotiations wrapped up pretty quickly, like Marc Marquez, for example, the last time he signed a new contract, I think Vinales and Rossi were the same. They didn't want the incessant questions from the media distracting them from their main goal of winning races. They got signed up before the season had even started. But yeah, the dynamics of the rider negotiation market is completely different in the time that I've been in MotoGP. It's incredible how it's changed.
Yeah, it's certainly getting in more and more interesting. Over just the last 3 years, it just seems to be getting a month earlier and a month earlier. But when we see all the big contracts, and of course next year, this year, well, 2020, a massive year. I wonder how soon we'll be seeing certain announcements of certain big rides for 2021. Having a look through more of the questions, do keep sending them in, by the way, because we can get some more sorted. A few people asking where Neil Spalding is this weekend, of course.
He's in pit lane at the moment, and he'll be with us at 3 o'clock for an hour. So, yeah, we'll be getting Spalder's thoughts on what he's seen and any other bits of gossip. So, yeah, Neil will be with us just after our lunch break. So we've got, what, 22, 23 minutes left here before we take an hour's break. And then right on arrival back, we will be with Spalder's. Alex Marquez posts his fastest time off the test so far, a 32.426. Impressive stuff from the number 73.
Yeah, Fabio Quartararo as well is picking up his rhythm here. He's now got down to a 1:35.91. So the margin between himself and Marc Marquez up to just 700. It's nothing really between the two of them. Here is Alex Marquez, hard on the brakes into turn 1. So he's moved up to 19th place, and now the younger Marquez.
Hey, Matt, I've got a question for you.
Oh no, here we go.
Seeing as you're travelling. Well, we always mention the fact that, because our guys in IPF, they love a bit of wildlife.
Go on, yeah.
What is the thing with birds? Just out of interest, where does it come from? Because you are a keen bird watcher, and I'm just intrigued. Come on.
Well, no, so motorcycle racing was my first love, and then through school work experience when I was 16, I managed to do a week working with birds of prey at a falconry centre. Just on the off chances that would be something to call. I've always loved animals, and basically the same things that I love about bikes, I also love about particularly birds of prey, and then that navigates to other birds as well, because and I know you're smirking because we're talking about birds with feathers, of course, and etc. The generic line, yeah, well, you terrible people out there. But no, things like speed and ultimate efficiency to do what the thing is designed to do as well as possible is what I love most. You see how aerodynamic, what marvels of nature, for example, birds of prey are, like falcons. You know, there's a reason why, for example, the Suzuki Hayabusa actually means peregrine falcon, because the Hayabusa breaks the 200-mile-an-hour barrier, which is how fast a peregrine falcon is, and all that. And yeah, they're just same sort of thing. The look of the bike, the sound, you know, a squawking eagle, etc. like that, always sounds pretty cool. It sort of strikes through your heart a bit more. Yeah, just always find it very exciting.
Well, there you go.
To be honest, and but
now
yeah, working with birds of prey, sort of, it gives you the same, especially when you have a falcon fly past your head, when they're so obviously, okay, so a little bit of falconry information out there. So when people keep a falcon, for example, and they want to exercise it, you have this big sort of rope swing called a lure, and on the end of it you have a leather pad with a bit of meat, etc. And it's often got like some wings from a dead quail or a pheasant or something like that, and the falcon will fly around, circle above, and then they do what's called a stoop, where they fold their wings in and just dive straight at it and try and punch it out the air with a clenched fist. And when a falcon is coming directly past your head because you're swinging a lure around right above you, and you have to make sure you time it right so you, one, don't hit the falcon, don't get the lure wrapped around your head, but that falcon's coming at you 180 miles an hour, you get a bit of an adrenaline rush, much like I think these guys kind of get. And obviously I've got no experience on a motorcycle really, especially not a fast motorcycle, so that's, I guess, that was my adrenaline rush back in the day.
Well, there you go. Thank you. Now I know.
Can't really beat a goldfinch like the guys have been filming all weekend.
Steady
on,
Matt. I've let you have your moment.
Step away from that conversation.
I'll call you back if we get another red flag.
Yeah, no. So yeah, if people do wonder, that's why. But I'll tell you what, one thing I did want to mention actually, seeing as you mentioned earlier about highlights of the season, and you mentioned Moto 3, I wanted to also mention there how awesome Moto E was this year in terms of the racing. A big surprise this year, I thought, was Moto E. The main intention of that being brought in was just to have, the #1 goal was to have safe and exciting racing. And it had just that all season long, and you had 2 absolute barnstorming finales here in Valencia, which just had us absolutely on the edge of our feet. And much like yourself, Steve, as they came towards the final corner, I myself had a few squeaky shouting sessions, and probably burst the eardrums of a few listeners who are listening in with earphones.
I have to say, actually, yeah, I was thoroughly impressed by some of the races in Moto E this year. I say that with a sort of surprised element tone in my voice, because I wasn't really sure what to make of it, but yeah, there has been some very good races. Those last 2, actually, I found myself sort of engrossed in. So yes, it's been very, very good. And you can hear from some of the riders. Simon himself has mentioned that he's been out on the Moto E bike, the race back, really, really impressed with it.
That was whilst most people were nursing.
Very much as ever to Matt Dunn. Thanks also to everybody out there for sending in your questions as well. As Matt rightly points out, we're about a quarter of an hour away from taking an hour's break, and then we'll be back with Neil Spalding. Right now, no change at the top. It's still Quattararo with a 30.5, and that is 4/10 slower than his time from yesterday. Other improvers further down, we mentioned Alex Marquez a moment ago. Dani Pedrosa moved up a few spots also, but everyone within 2.3 seconds. One thing,
dearie me, Franco Morbidelli, sorry Steve, he got that wrong going into the first corner. Thankfully it's got a positive outcome for Franco Morbidelli. He's just doing a bit of dirt tracking in the gravel trap at turn 1.
Aprilia have had a very quiet day. Aleix Espargaro's finally back out on circuit, because I was going to mention that he'd only completed 11 laps after that crash earlier down at turn 14. He's only just made it out. Andrea Iannone, since the fireball incident earlier that brought out the red flag, he's not made it back out since that moment.
Yes, anything but a quiet day for some of the Aprilia personnel when Andrea Iannone got back to that Aprilia garage after that blow-up that brought out the red flags. Here's Maverick Vinales then. We just heard from him a while ago while he had a pause in his second day on action here in Valencia. Keeping his cards quite close to his chest, wasn't he, to be fair, Maverick? Confirming that he's got that new engine and chassis, but they need more time to make any or draw any serious conclusions. But yesterday, and when he spoke to Simon briefly earlier on, he did seem quite upbeat, quite positive. Iker Lecuona is doing a brilliant job, isn't he, at the moment? Still on hovering around that top 10. Hervé Poncharal might have unearthed another rough diamond there that he can mould into a proper top MotoGP start.
Let's have another look at this moment then for Franco, breaking into turn 1. Just looks like he sort of bottomed out front forks there, and We saw that a couple of times from Fabio Quartararo, if you remember, back in Misano earlier this season. Maverick Vinales then does improve his time. He's out on another lap now to try and move up into the top 6. Fastest Ducati right now, Dovi in 9th, although every single time we've been into his garage, he's not looked the most happy customer.
Yeah, hasn't done that many laps, has he, today as well? Andrea Dovizioso, just a 17 from him. His best time, a 31.213, coming on lap 6. Of course, he said, and he always says, it's a kind of a phony war, isn't it, in many respects, pre-season testing, because you're never quite sure what programs each individual rider's running. Is he on soft tyres? Is he running a low fuel load in time attack mode? Exactly what is he assessing on those motorcycles? So Andrea Dovizioso only really wants to draw any conclusions when he's in the heat of the battle on Sunday night in Qatar. As Marc Marquez spotted trackside here in Valencia, looks like he was acknowledging somebody watching from the side of the circuit.
Yeah, one thing is for sure, you can never really read into what's happening for 2020, can you, just from testing results? Doesn't always work out that way. I mean, you only have to look at Sepang last year. It was Danilo Petrucci and Pecco Bagnaia, weren't they, up there? And Petrucci was fastest by a long, long way.
Yeah, kind of lulled Bagnaia into a false sense of security as well. Big pre-season confidence boost, but it kind of raised his own personal expectations, and the reality, once the racing started, it was a completely different ball game. And we saw Pecco Bagnaia struggle on quite a few occasions. Not really renowned for being a crasher, is he, Pecco Bagnaia, but he found the gravel far too often in his rookie season. And he said, based on pre-season to where he actually finished on a consistent basis this year, it was a year of some frustration below what he was expecting. Nothing's easy when you get into the MotoGP World Championship, that's for sure.
There's also something else just to throw into this as well. I mean, maybe Simon could add to this as well. Some riders just generally absolutely detest testing, and others really like it, and that must play quite a significant part. I mean, there are some riders out there who are just all for